Hi guys, welcome back to Nico Talks Hockey. Today we're going over the best prospect on every single NHL team. I apologize for an extended absence off the channel. I've been just cooking up in the lab. I've been cooking up lots of videos, trying to make sure they're all very, high quality and the best they can be for this channel and for all you guys watching. So I apologize again for the time off I've taken of this channel, but without further ado, I want to go into this. I really want to dive deep in here. I love talking about prospects. I love talking about future up and coming players. But today I want to talk about NHL only prospects, players that have been drafted and are on teams. I want to go through every single team and want to evaluate what I think is the best prospect in that system. So the criteria here is kind of simple. Players generally have to have played in 50 or fewer NHL games or spent more time outside the NHL than in it last season. So just last season. Players over 23 years old, I did not include. I just wanted to get more of a feel that I know that you're still Calder eligible if you're older than 23. I think it's 26 or younger. And then goaltenders, there's a bit of a more leeway there because goalies take longer to develop. So I said 25 or younger to count as a prospect. I didn't think that there were too many, caveats there. I mean, there's maybe one or two with teams. But yeah, without further ado, let's go through it. I wanted to go through by division first. Let's start with the Pacific Division. We'll start with the Anaheim Ducks. With the Anaheim Ducks, I think that their best prospect currently in the system is Roger McQueen. So the Ducks have a ton of young, good players, but a lot of them aren't prospect eligible. They don't count really as prospects anymore. Like Leo Carlson is their best, in my opinion, young player, not a prospect anymore. Mason McTavish, a big fan of, lots of defense options there. But in terms of prospects, I think Roger McQueen's their best option. He could absolutely, I think, has the ceiling to be a number one center. I really do think so. It's just the injury concerns that scare me a little bit. But if he can stay healthy, Roger McQueen's a fantastic pick. With that size, he can be the next, Tage Thompson. Moving on to the Calgary Flames, their best prospect is pretty easy to say. It's Zane Parekh. When the 2024 draft, when all that buzz was going on, it was talked about what are the best defensive prospects in this draft. It was Levshunov, it was Parekh, it was Sam Dickinson, it was Yakimchuk, it was Boyum. Now I was a big believer that, and I still am, that Levshunov will be the best defensive prospect of that class. But I thought Zane Parekh was the clear second best option there. I think even better than Zeev Boyum. Sorry, Wild fans. I'm a big fan of Zeev Boyum. But Zane Parekh, I think the world of. I think his offensive ceiling is off the charts. If he can just be steady defensively, he's going to be the number one quarterback on the Flames for many, many years to come. Big believer in Zane Parekh. Tampa on to the Edmonton Oilers. They don't have a great prospect pool, but I love their recent trade. It's Isaac Howard. They just got him from the Tampa Bay Lightning. I love the move. I'm really glad they did it. They need to get younger and they need to get faster, and I think that this is a great start to do that. He should play in their top six. At least that's, if I was the coach, I would do that. I think he should get at least looks there. Really nice move. Ceiling wise, I think that Isaac Howard could be a top six player in their offensive group. So it's a really nice move. That's the Oilers' best prospect for sure. Moving on to the LA Kings, not a lot to choose from, but there is one that sticks out. It's Liam Greentree of the 2024. They got him in the 2024 draft. Greentree was not high on him, still not very high on, but he's definitely their best prospect. They've got a lot of goalies in their prospect pool, but Greentree, I think that if he can develop well, if they can do all the right things for his development, make sure they don't rush him. He takes time in the lower levels before he reaches the NHL. Maybe he could. His ceiling is it's middle six, I think, and the absolute ceiling is maybe a number 5 or 6 on that second line, somewhere on the second line of that forward group. So Greentree, not the highest personally on, but he's the best Kings prospect in my opinion. Moving on to the Sharks, there's really no other option. It's Michael Misa. It's not because of lack of options. The Sharks have a ton of really good prospects. I'll be coming out with a video detailing what I think are all 32 prospect pools ranked, right? 1 through 32. And spoiler alert, the Sharks are pretty high. I will not tell you exactly where they are, but they're quite high. But that shouldn't become as no surprise. And Michael Misa is one of my favorite prospects in the game. He does everything well. He's going to be a superstar, in my opinion. I think he's going to be, he's easily going to hit 100 points. I think he'll be a 100-point player consistently. And he's got the moxie and the confidence that I love to see in a young player. It just takes the game by storm. I think he'll take the game by storm. I think he'll, as soon as he comes to the NHL, he'll show why he was granted exceptional status when he was like a 16-year-old. Michael Misa, best Sharks prospect. Moving on to the Seattle Kraken, they've got a lot of good prospects, but my favorite is the undersized Berkeley Catton. Big fan of Catton. I just love his skill set. He reminds me of like Rossi, but even better in my opinion, like Marco Rossi in the Wild. I think that Berkeley Catton, if he was just like even 2 inches taller, he'd be talked about way more. But because of the size, he's like 5'9". He's not talked about that much, but his skill set is otherworldly. I have no doubts that he'll become, as long as the Kraken can do right by him and develop him just decently. He'll be a top 6, top 6 center. He'll be likely a second line center, but he is so good. He impresses me so much that I wouldn't be surprised if he becomes a low end 1C, something like that. Moving on to the Vancouver Canucks, I've got Tom Willander. Almost picked Lekaramaki here, but I like the upside with Willander. It's like a shutdown presence on the right side. Is no slouch offensively, but he'll be for sure. He's like a sure bet to be in the top 4 eventually for the Canucks. He's a right shot too, which is always helpful. Willander is the Canucks' best prospect in my opinion. Moving on to the Vegas Golden Knights to finish off the Pacific Division, I have Trevor Connolly. It's really the only person of note in the Vegas pipeline. Connolly, another person I'm not too high on, kind of like Greentree, but I'm a little higher on Connolly. He had those kind of off-ice issues that were a little bit concerning, but Vegas decides to take him anyways. We'll see if Vegas keeps him around. Vegas likes to trade their prospects for win now, and I don't blame them because it consistently works. But I think they've got a good one in Connolly that could, is like a probably tops out as like a middle six option in the forward core. Moving on to the Central Division, my Blackhawks. I think the best Blackhawks prospect, you could go with a lot. They've got one of the best prospect pools in the whole league. You could go with Anton Frundell, but I decided not to. I didn't even go with Sam Rinzel either. I went with Artem Levshinov. I'm one of the biggest Levshinov believers you will find around. I was one of the original, I was in the minority for sure, people who believed that Levshinov was the better pick than Demidov. I still believe that. Roast me in the comments if you wish, but I think that Levshinov's ceiling is so exciting. I think it's so exciting because I truly believe he can be a Victor Hedman-like player. That is his ceiling. I'm not saying that he will for sure get that, but if they can unlock him, if the Blackhawks can develop him well, unlock his full potential and his ceiling, I think that's what he can reach, which is, that's as important as ingredient as any for a Stanley Cup winning team. So, yeah, big believer in Levshinov. I think he's the Blackhawks' best prospect. Moving on to the Avalanche, they just got this guy, Gavin Brindley, from the Columbus Blue Jackets. I think it was in the Charlie Coyle trade, if I do remember correctly. A lot of people kind of bash the trade. I like the trade, actually, for Columbus. I thought Coyle was a good player to get. But I understand why, because I think Brindley is a really good prospect. I wanted the Hawks to get him because I remember they had an extra pick at the end of the first round. I was hoping that Brindley would be that pick because he was still available. He ended up going really early in the second round. But yeah, Brindley, big believer in him, and I think that he's got the playmaking skills to, if he develops right and they're patient with him, yeah, he could absolutely turn some heads and surprise some people that he ends up being a little bit better than some people had him, because obviously he went to the second round. I think he has the talent to have been a first round selection. Moving on to the Dallas Stars, they have a great group of young players, but not a lot of prospects. Like their prospect pool is a little bare because of all the young players who've matriculated up to the NHL now. But their best prospect, I still count him as a prospect because of the criteria I said at the beginning of the video, but it's Liam Bichel. Liam Bichel is a defenseman prospect who, the rich just get richer. They've got Heiskanen, they've got Harley, they've got Lindell, and now they're getting Bichel, who I hope they don't trade him. And I guess being a Hawks fan, sure, trade him. I don't care. They're in the Central Division. No skin off my nose. But if I'm a Stars fan, don't trade Bichel. I know that they're trying to get good now, and Bichel might take some time to fully reach his potential, as most defenders do in the NHL. But I think that Bichel will for sure be a top 4 addition, and he could. I really, really like this player. So he could be, end up being a number 3 or number 2 for a team. Let's see if it's the Stars. Moving on to the Minnesota Wild, it's Zeev Boyum. I was referencing him earlier. The Wild have one of the best prospect pools in the whole league, and so it says a lot that Boyum is their best because they have a lot of other options. I'm a big fan of Wallstedt. He might be my favorite goalie prospect over Askarov. I know that Wolf isn't a prospect anymore, but when he was a prospect, I still liked Wallstedt more. I think the ceiling for Wallstedt is really, really high. I think that he's a clear-cut number 1 goalie on when he finally, I think he breaks through this year, right? Like in terms of like staying, because Fleury's gone, so they'll probably run a Gustafsson-Wallstedt tandem. But sorry, the player I'm talking about is Zeev Boyum, and Boyum is easily a top 4 defenseman in terms of like his floor. That's his floor. His ceiling is a top 2 defenseman on the team. He just does everything right. He can. I could see him on the power play. I could see. He's going to shut you down. He's played he's played well and has been a winner at like every stage. So yeah, very big believer in Boyum. Moving on to the Predators. For how mediocre / bad they've been recently, I wanted them to have a bit better of a prospect pool, but their best player is Brady Martin, who they just grabbed. Again, I said earlier in another video that I wasn't the biggest fan of this pick, but still, Brady Martin isn't like a bad player, a bad prospect by any means. He's a good prospect. I just thought that, I thought there were a couple prospects that were available that are a little bit better, but still, Brady Martin, if he can develop, I think there's just a little bit more risk with Martin, that he doesn't turn out to be the number 1 center that I think the Predators are hoping him to turn out to be. Likely a number 2 center, but that's always great to have. Every team wants a certified number 2 center. So Brady Martin is the Predators' best prospect. Moving on to the St. Louis Blues, Jimmy Snuggerud, I still count him as a prospect. Snuggerud is awesome. I'm a big fan of Snuggerud. He's got the swagger that I love seeing players have. He showed in the playoffs, just past playoffs, in that 7-game series, that he showed that he's the real deal, and he's ready now. So he'll be in the top 6 for the Blues this coming season, and I'm really excited to see what he can do, because he can score, he can set up the plays, and can also be very physical, which is a really cool element to watch for him. Moving on to the best Mammoth prospect, it's Caleb Denoyer. Caleb Denoyer, it was rumored that the Hawks really wanted him, but they ended up choosing Frondell. But I wonder if Frondell was taken and somehow Misa was taken as well. I think that he was the next player that the Hawks were looking at. And for good reason. Denoyer is at the floor, a number 2 center. That's my opinion of him. I think the world of Denoyer. So I think that the Mammoth got a really good one. Their center, their 1-2 center punch for years to come will be Cooley and Denoye. That's a luxury that so many teams wish they could have. He's just a true center who can shut you down, but also, do everything that a good center does. Moving on to the Winnipeg Jets as we reach the halfway mark of 32 teams. Winnipeg Jets, it's got to be Braden Yeager. It's looking a little bare in Winnipeg in terms of their prospect pool, but Yeager, I still have belief in that he can, reach top 6 and instead of the floor, which is probably like, third line-ish. If he can reach that top 6 potential that I think he can reach, then it's great for the Jets because they've got a lot of players who are, only aging. They've got an older core, so they're really hoping that Yeager can turn into something here for them. Moving on to the Boston Bruins, they needed this player bad, and I'm sure they're very happy they got him. James Higgins. I still think the world of James Higgins. I know that he dropped a lot on like mock drafts and just like, the rankings of the prospects this past draft. But Higgins, while somewhat small, is like so skilled. His talent and skill as a hockey player, it doesn't matter his size. He's gonna be a big time point producer in the NHL, and the Bruins got really lucky by him just falling into their laps. So good for the Bruins. Moving on to the Buffalo Sabres, they're another team like the Ducks, kind of like the Stars as well, that they're like them in the sense that they have a good young group of players, but a lot of them don't count as prospects anymore. Their best player, in my opinion, is Konsta Helenius. Helenius is someone that I still think very highly of. I think that he's going to be, a top 6 center for sure. I think he'll be, he'll probably top out as a second line center, but, that's much like Caleb Denoye. That's a player that every team is going to need. So the issue is the Sabres, right? The issue is the organization that fails to do right by its players by being successful ever. So if they can just be successful, make sure that Helenius, when he gets to the NHL, is happy and is on a team that is looking up, then this is going to be a great player for their future. Moving on to the Red Wings, they have one of the best prospect pools in the NHL, so it was really hard to pick for them. I could have picked Axel Sandin Pellikka. I could have picked Sebastian Cossa, but I went with the goalie that I think is the most impressive to me, which is Trey Augustine. I think the sky is the limit for Augustine. Much like Askarov or Wallstedt or Wolf, I think Augustine will be of that ilk. Which is like, a true 1A or just flat out like, number one goalie. Has 60% plus of the net, of the timeshare of the net. So Augustine is going to take a while to, reach the NHL ranks, especially because the Red Wings seem to be blocking his path and Cossa's path by having like 4 goalies that are able to be playing at any time. But still, I still think that Augustine is going to be a great goalie for the Red Wings. Moving on to the Florida Panthers, I have Grayson Sawshin. There's better prospects on this list, but Sawshin is the best Panthers prospect. It's the result of being a back-to-back Stanley Cup champion and 3-time in a row Cup finalist. You're gonna have, your best prospect maybe isn't gonna be otherworldly, but I still think highly of Sawshin. I think that his ceiling's probably like a middle 6 kind of player, and that's okay because his floor and his ceiling's probably pretty close to each other. I think that's actually fine because the Panthers have their core locked up. So if Sawshin can eventually get up to the NHL and they can play him in some third line role, maybe that will be just fine for the Panthers. Moving on to the Ottawa Senators. The Ottawa Senators have a better prospect pool. Again, I'm getting ahead of myself. There's another video for the all the prospect pools ranked, but the Ottawa Senators do have a good prospect pool, but I think the best player in that pool is Carter Yakimchuk, a player that I still thought, when I was looking at all those defensemen in that 2024 draft, I was like, okay, Levshon is better, Parekh is better, but I had Yakimchuk and Dickinson like really close, I think that Yakimchuk, and he's only proved people who were doubting him more wrong as as he keeps going. His draft plus 1 year was really good. I expect him to get some NHL games this season. He's right shot, which is always great. Just a very offensive player that can defend as well, quite well. Moving on to the Montreal Canadiens, one of the most impressive prospect pools in the game, and it is Ivan Demidov. Big fan of David Reinbacher, actually. I know that a lot of Montreal fans are pretty sour on him, especially because they wanted Montreal to take, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on his name now, but the Russian that went to the Flyers. I'm having an absolute brain fart. Tell me in the comments the obvious player I'm thinking of. But the Russian guy who went to the Flyers, who dropped. They went with David Reinbacher instead. But still, I think I'm a big fan of David Reinbacher. Still think that he's got the chops to be a top 4 defenseman, potentially top 2. But again, that's not the player I'm talking about. I'm talking about Ivan Demidov. And Demidov, I think, is one of the best prospects in the game. No question about it. He is going to be a top 6 player on the Montreal Canadiens. He is going to be someone that is on the front page of the NHL Instagram page all the time, because he will be lighting it up. He is a human highlight reel, and the stuff he does with the puck is just wizardry. So yeah, Ivan Demidov, best Canadiens prospect. Moving on to the Tampa Bay Lightning. It's got to be Sam O'Reilly. Not a very impressive prospect pool, but he's the guy that got back in exchange from the Oilers in exchange for Ike Howard. So Sam O'Reilly, I think that Ike Howard is the better player, and I think he'll be the better player, in the future. But O'Reilly is no slouch. He's not some, C-level or worse prospect. O'Reilly will be something. I predict, he'll be a NHL player, and it won't be just some replacement level player. I think he'll be more impactful than that for sure. Moving on to the Toronto Maple Leafs, it's Easton Cowan. You could put Ben Danford there, but no, I'm not too high on Danford. I know that he's so big and so physical, but Easton Cowan's kind of guy. I'm hesitant to say like Matthew Nyes, because he's not going to be a Matthew Nyes in my opinion, but he'll be someone like Matthew Nyes where like he's kind of like that diamond in the rough that was like they somehow got him in like the 20 somethings when he should have gone, close to probably 11th, 12th. So yeah, he definitely fell a bit, and he shouldn't have, because the Leafs scouting staff, they did right, and they picked this guy. He's going to be at least middle 6 for them, and could absolutely be someone who eventually contributes in the top 6 for their forward group. Moving on to the Carolina Hurricanes, they're a team that always drafts well, but the prospect that most impresses me, and the player that we'll get to see this coming season, Alexander Nikishin, don't really know how to pronounce his name, but he's a defenseman that really impresses me. He just plays such a mature game, and I'm just so excited. They obviously believe a ton in him because they let Scott Morrow go, so they're full in on Nikishin, and for good reason. He's very impressive, and I expect him to be a immediate top 4 contributor. Well, at least he should be. Let's hope Brendan Moore plays him like that. Moving on to the Blue Jackets, a really impressive prospect pool. I went with Caden Lindstrom. I love the player. I love the prospect. I love the person. I think he's a great person. But it's just the injury history, right? He's one of my favorite prospects in the game today. I just worry about his injury history, like everybody else. If he can somehow put that behind him, stay consistently healthy year to year, he's going to be awesome. He's going to be a number 1 center on. He's going to be their number 2 because they're a luxurious team when it comes to all the prospect and young players they have. So Fantilli will probably be their number 1, and then Lindstrom number 2. But let's just hope he can stay healthy. I'm really rooting for him. Moving on, we've got 6 prospects left. We are looking at the New Jersey Devils. It's got to be Anton Salayev. They've got a lot of good players. I debated on Seamus Casey, But I went with Salayev because I really like his size, first of all. I think he's, defensemen that are big, that also as mobile as him. It's like a cheat code, and it's always something that teams are clamoring to have. So great for the Devils here. Salayev is going to be a great defenseman. Moving on to the New York Islanders, this is the easiest one. It was Matthew Schaefer. They actually do have a decent prospect pool now after Matthew Darche just comes in and puts the team finally on the right track. Good for Matthew Darche and the Islanders, and they get a top 2 defenseman in Matthew Schaefer. He will be a top 2 defenseman on their team. Maybe not number 1, but that is his ceiling. Like, his ceiling is you could be a number 1. So, and he's an otherworldly person. All the interviews, all the things that he's done for charity, and hearing his story about all the tragedy in his life, he's just such a mature person. I'm on Team Schaefer like hell. So I really am rooting for the guy. Moving on to the New York Rangers, it's Gabe Perreault. Now, the Rangers are a team that I never trust when it comes to developing prospects, but I'm hoping that Perreault works out. I remember when the Hawks were drafting 2023, they got Bedard, and then they had their second first-round pick. And I was hoping that they'd pick Oliver Moore, and they got Oliver Moore. But the second player I was hoping they'd pick, if Moore was off the board by that time, was Gabe Perreault. So I think very highly of Gabe Perreault. I think he's an easy top 6 player, top 6 winger. It's just all up to the Rangers if they can develop him properly. Last 3 prospects here. Moving on to the Philadelphia Flyers, it's Porter Martone, Matvei Michkov. God, it's just sometimes you need the word association to ring the memory. That was who I was talking about when the Canadians were the fans want Canadians to pick Michkov. He was right there. They ended up picking Reinbacher. But anyway, Porter Martone, I wasn't the biggest fan of this pick just because I think they already have a lot of depth on the wings. I think they need more elite help at center, the center position. I don't love how I don't love their depth when it comes to Lachenko. I don't love it. But Porter Martone is a very good player. So if they thought that he was the next best player available to them, then so be it. He's going to be a top 6 winger for sure. He plays with physicality. He's always at the net. He's able to create chances by himself. He's a really, really nice prospect for the Philadelphia Flyers. Last 2 teams here in second last is the Pittsburgh Penguins. They have a lot of prospects, so the depth is there. It's the caliber of players that I'm just still underwhelmed by. But this coming draft, I'm sure, will be a huge one for them. They're probably going to sell like crazy and try and go for the Gavin McKenna sweepstakes. But their best player is Rutger McGroarty, their best prospect. Rutger McGroarty, he wasn't going to play for the Jets, so they trade him, and he's on the Penguins. We'll see how he does this season. This is a big season for him. Very excited to see how he does. Let's hope he gets top 6 minutes. I'm pulling for Rutger here. And then lastly, the Washington Capitals, the last team for the Metro Division. It's Ryan Leonard. They have a very nice prospect pool. All props to the management team in Washington. They're a team that's been able to be consistently good and making the playoffs, and then they have 2 seasons off, and they go right back to it. They win best team in the East last season, and they still have one of the best prospect pools. So Ryan Leonard, big fan of this player. He's Matthew Tkachuk-esque. He's Brady Tkachuk-esque. If there's any player who's like them, it's him. I don't think he's got the talent that of the Tkachuks, but he's an easy top 6 addition for their forward group. I think he'll play on the 3rd line this season, but he'll eventually make it to the top 6. And the edge he plays with and the compete level that he brings every time he steps foot on the ice is just so much fun to watch. But yeah, I'm sorry again. This is a really long one, but I appreciate any and all of you guys who decided to watch the whole thing and stay with me here. That has been my best prospect for every single NHL team. Again, thank you so much for watching. I'll be having more prospect videos out in the future. My next video, I believe, will be the top 20 prospects in the league, top 20 NHL affiliated prospects, and then I'll also be ranking 1 through 32 all the prospect pools in the NHL. Thank you again so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.